everyone listening, it's shows like the one you're about to hear that inspire me to continue to get better as a podcaster. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope all of you get as much from it as I did. So let's get it, y'all. What's up, Trade Crew? Welcome back to the HVAC R&D podcast, the home of the trade crew, the voice of distribution, contractors, and manufacturers. We're rolling into Q2 with some serious momentum, and the show is growing bigger than ever. The HVAC R&D Substack newsletter is officially live. The Ramblin' Rhino column is back in full force with multiple fresh articles dropping every single week, and the newly relaunched resource hub at hvacrnd.com is now going to be your go-to spot for tools, products, partners, and insights built to help you grow in the trades. So if you believe in real conversations from the truck to the boardroom, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe to the show. Don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter so you never miss the conversations, columns, and resources built for the people keeping this industry moving. Big shout out to our Q2 partners making it all happen: Diversitech, LiveSwitch, RLS Rapid Locking System, True Nature Meats Company, Residio, and Mon Hummel. Now lock in, turn it up, and let's get into another great conversation right here on HVAC R&D. So what's up, Trade Crew? Welcome back to the show. And today I have the one, the only, Josh Zolin. He is one of the most recognizable voices in the trades when it comes to leadership, growth, and telling the truth most people avoid. From scaling Windy City equipment into a multi-million-dollar operation, to writing Blue is the New White, and to building a platform that has helped reshape how the next generation views the trades, Josh has lived a lot of life in his 40 years and recently dropped a post breaking down 40 lessons learned along the way, which is how he and I started this conversation and got to this show in the first place. And a lot of those lessons hit home because I feel the same way about a lot of them. I'm excited to unpack a lot of those and some other things. So today we're not just talking about success, we're talking about the reality behind it. So Josh, thank you for spending some time with me and the trade crew today.
Man, thank you so much for the opportunity, for the invitation. I've been excited to have this conversation ever since we started talking about it.
For people that may not know you, which most people know you way more than they know me, as a first time on the show, not your first time behind the mic, how does it feel being on the other side of that today, being the one that gets asked instead of having to ask?
It's a breath of fresh air.
Right?
Man, I feel like I don't have to prepare for half the things I usually prepare for.
I know exactly what you mean. I've done a couple other people's shows the last couple of months, and like every time I look on the calendar, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm on the show today. This is fantastic. I'm just going to sit back and this is going to be fun. But you know, you've built businesses, you've built a podcast, you're now building another podcast, you've written a book. I feel like in some ways you've started a movement in the trades for people. What's been the most fun part of that journey?
It's a great kickoff question. So first off, I don't know that I can take credit for starting a movement. Causation or correlation, nobody can tell. I'm just happy to be part of it. Right? These industries that you just talked about, they saved my life. Quite literally saved my life. And I think the most enjoyable part of all of it was being able to pour into the people around me and really just become a better version of myself, man.
No, and that conversation, dang it, I'm a rabbit hole on question number one.
Let's go.
I had it, and I think I talked about it some on a show a few weeks ago. So forgive me for repeating myself, people, but I really want Josh's take on this. I had a conversation with a very famous influencer's father. So my wife and I met Daryl Ann Dinner, who is a huge influencer, like beyond anyone I've ever met size-wise. But it's more on the mom side of things, and the family side of things. But her dad is a multi-million-dollar contractor out west. And the whole time my wife's trying to figure out what she's going to say to Daryl Ann when she meets her. And I'm like, how can I talk to her dad? You know? So eventually we get up there after standing in line for like 3 hours. Yes, I love my wife, everybody. And she's talking to Daryl Ann and talking to these other people. I'm like, I'm just going to shoot my shot and go talk to this guy. And I ended up talking to him for like half an hour. I would love to get him on this show. He would be fantastic. But one of the things we talked about, you just brought up, and you said you love to pour into people. And he said one of the biggest problems we face right now in the trades and in life in general is that there aren't older men pouring into younger men to make them better people in our trades, in our industry, and society in general. You saying that makes me really think of that. I think that's half the goal of this episode is bringing awareness to something like that. Preface all that to say, and you talk about how the trade saved your life. You started as a stuntman, which might be one of the wildest origin stories we've had. So, what did that season teach you that still shows up in who you have become since getting into the trades?
Oh, there's a lot of answers to that question. I'll give you the ones that come to mind the quickest for me. Number one, relationship with risk, right? Especially as an entrepreneur, founder, CEO, president. I mean, I've started businesses, I've grown businesses, I've run consistent businesses, and there's no shortage of risk in any single one of them, and in that position. But I learned from a very early age that that's all just your nervous system, especially in the environment of business, right? The best analogy I ever heard was how we've redefined our relationship with fear. And the analogy was we feel like we're walking on a tightrope, yet we don't know if we're 60 feet above the ground or 6 inches above the ground. So we assume we're 60 feet. We assume that if we stumble a little bit and we slip and we fall, we're going to just plummet to our ultimate demise, right? We've all had this mindset doing whatever it is that we do. And the reality is we're 6 inches 95% of the time. And all we have to do when we fall off is step right back on. I learned this early on because I was in life and death situations. I was in situations where I was 60 feet above the ground, about to jump and lose all control of where I landed once I jumped, and just hope and pray the entire way down that I hit that bag, which, by the way, looked like a micro machine from 60 feet up, right? And I'm aiming for the X in the middle of it. So I've had a very interesting relationship with risk and with fear since I was in the stump business. And that made everything else that I did today in the trades, whether it was learning a new trade, or whether it was starting a business or running a business or hiring, firing, whatever, it just didn't have the same impact as if I tripped and fell on a 60-foot platform, or if I ran the wrong direction when I was on fire, or if I turned the wrong way when I went to roll a vehicle. All of those things have life or death repercussions, but these things, they don't. Now, unless we're sitting in front of a piece of equipment, we can have that conversation too. Big safety measures there. But, from an overall standpoint of running a business, my relationship with risk and fear, definitely different. So that's the first thing top of mind. I'll stop there and let you kind of respond to that.
No, and I think that's an excellent perspective, because that's not necessarily what I would have thought would have been the answer, but I completely get that. So when I was in college, I went to school originally to be a history major, realized I would never make any money doing that. I also learned that I didn't get to be Indiana Jones, which was a huge letdown. But I stumbled into an entrepreneurial business course, and that's how I ended up eventually getting a degree in entrepreneurial business. And one of the things I loved about that was I got to learn business from nothing to something. I wasn't really interested in a business management degree because, well, status quo isn't what I want. I want to know why we got to the point of wanting to just have status quo. And, and I grew up in a family business, so I kind of got to see that risk reward thing. Like, we had good years and we had bad years. I think coming from that too, I understand your perspective of how that's helped you do more, because even though I got to see it, I didn't necessarily understand it as much because I'm not the one that started the business, but I got to see it and kind of feel it. But then getting to hear you talk about it, that makes so much more sense why it kind of made a transition make sense to you, because you're like, oh, well, I mean, this is so much less scary than jumping off a building. I mean, I can get that completely. So, for people that maybe know your content but don't know you, who is Josh outside of business and this persona that you have online? What's the difference between good old Daddy Josh?
Danny Josh. Good question. I'm always perplexed as to how to answer this question because I want to give something deep and introspective, but really at the heart of it, like my business is my hobby. So what you see is what you get with me. But ultimately, here's what I'll say. I'm an introvert. People don't know that. I speak on stage. I'm at some of the largest conferences in the world. I rub elbows with very important people. I lead 16-hour board meetings. I do all of these things in front of people. I am probably one of the biggest introverts you'll ever meet. I love time alone. It's where I am most creative. That's where I feel most myself. That's where I'm most loving with my family, right? And I have a beautiful wife and two beautiful daughters. And yes, I'm stopping at two because what if I get three? But love them to death. And when I'm not working on my work and or my hobby, which are the same things, I'm spending time with them, and I'm making sure that I'm bringing strong, confident, capable women into this world who will turn away from nothing, who will fear nothing, and who won't be victims to any circumstance they encounter.
I feel like that's how my dad raised my sisters. I had two sisters. One unfortunately has passed away. The other one is much older than me, and then her daughter, who is my niece, who is only a couple years younger than me, is the same way. And they are extremely strong, passionate, vibrant women in the business world. So I can appreciate that sentence so much. My wife and I don't have kids. We've got three crazy little schnauzers that will stand up to anybody. So I guess we got that part right.
Same
But
thing, man. Same
same
thing.
thing, right? Um, I love you talking about your business being your hobby because your family's first.
Yeah.
Not enough people hear that. Not enough people think that way. Um, Someone wants to say your business is your hobby. They're like, oh, they're not dedicated. No, 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 no. It's two different things.
Mm.
So people need to understand that. But it starts at the home. If you take care of it at the home, business and everything else will be able to take care of itself because you have that solid foundation to do it all.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I'm such a big personal development buff too, because I'm a big advocate for putting your own oxygen mask on first,
Yep.
right? I can't take care of the people around me, which starts with my family, until I take care of me, my health, my mind, everything. And then, I can take care of my family. Then I can take care of my business and the people in it.
Yeah. And I mirror you in a lot of ways with the introvert side, which I suck at looking at this camera mainly because you're over here and my notes are over here. But like I'm very naturally introverted. Like it's tough for me even now to just to sit here and stare at this thing. Um, because I'm a very outside of this, and I'm an outside salesperson. But if you look at what a disc assessment looks like for me as a salesperson versus what a disc assessment looks like for me when they ask me about home, it is night and day. I am almost it's like when work's over, this shuts off, and I'm this person over here. I'm very introverted. I love my alone time. I love quiet. I love to just go sit on the top of a mountain and take
Yes.
in nature and be like, ah, now, and let your mind run free because it never stops.
That's
But it's when you can take the noise down and just let it do its thing. It's
fun
different.
fact. When you reached out to me to come on this show, I was literally on top of a mountain
That's
doing
awesome.
that exact same thing.
That's awesome. So, you've been around the trades media space for quite a while. What are some of the things you've seen change the most since you first got involved?
Oh man, what a great question. Yeah, when I got involved because this stuff was not front and center, because it needed a platform. We needed a spotlight on these people in the industries that we work in because they're so smart and so talented and salt of the earth. I mean, so grounded, right? I mean, you're exposed to these people all the time. They are incredible people, and sad to say that a lot of them at the time I got into this actually had the opposite opinion of themselves because they got into this line of work because they were told they weren't smart enough to go to college, or
Yep.
you know oh, just go learn a trade. And so they had this opinion of themselves. And so it didn't cascade across social media, or really, I mean, a lot of people weren't proud of it. And I mean, I turned that completely on its head, right? That's why I wrote the book, and it's why I started the brand, because this shit is something to be proud of.
Yep.
Like, I love to say, I end a lot of my talks this way, one line, and I say, kids these days, they want to change the world. So why aren't we introducing them to the industries that actually build it?
Oh, it's a fantastic line.
It's true. And so what I've seen change is, and you've seen it too, you're in this world, the amount and the influx of tradespeople and trades organizations putting themselves out there, both their work and why they love it. That has saturated the internet now, which is fantastic. The narrative around what the benefits are, what the pay is, what kind of success you can achieve, all of that is starting to take more and more of a front seat next to or ahead of college. And one more thing on this: AI is one of the best things that has happened to the skilled trades, and it is a launch pad for people coming into this industry.
I completely agree with that. There are a lot of people that don't. There are a lot of people that hate AI. There's people that don't like that I use AI some. And I use it because it's a tool that's available.
Mhm.
And if we don't understand, I mean, as a tradesperson, if you don't understand how to use the tools that are available in any part of the trades, whether it's social media or fixing a furnace or fixing a heat pump or any of the above or the latter, if you're not learning how to use the tools that are available to you, you are falling behind in one way or another.
And we're in a unique position, right? Because we're in industries that AI is going to take a whole lot longer to infiltrate as far as who
Yes.
can do the job. I had an employee of mine come to me recently and ask, because we also adopt AI, like in my organizations and stuff. We use it all the time to leverage incredible things. But they asked me, they said, is my job at risk? Am I at risk at losing my job to AI? I thought about it for a second. I said, no, you are at risk for losing your job to somebody who knows how to use AI.
Yep.
So what are you going to do? I'm going to learn AI. Good. Go.
No, and that I think that's the biggest fact of the matter about it. AI is such a tool for the trades. It will replace other jobs outside of the trades. Period. It's going to happen. And it's going to happen faster than any of us want it to, and faster than any of us are going to want to admit that it's going to do it. But it will. It's not going to replace a guy in a 130-degree attic. It's not going to replace a guy in a crawl space. It's not going to replace this majority of the support system keeping those people in said crawl space or attic. It's a tool for, like you said, to leverage to be able to do more in less time. It's also a tool that you can use to buy back some time for the things that you actually want, like your family, which is the
Yes.
biggest reason why I've adopted what I have out of it, is because there's a million things up here that I want out that I can build out with some help, and they can help me, like, just taking away the fact that I can build something and then say, you schedule it for me. Dude, that'll save you 30 minutes right there. Because if you want to take one post and schedule it across 6 social media platforms, it's going to take 2 or 3 minutes per post per platform if you do it yourself. Or you can let an app that's integrated into it do all 6 of them in 30 seconds. You can go build another one, or you can take a break,
Yeah.
or you can go do something that actually moves the business forward. Leverage it, use it where you can use it. It makes sense. So let's talk about the journey to 40, as it's the whole part of our topic here.
Yeah.
So, and let's rewind it just a little bit. What did success look like to you at 20? And how wrong how wrong was your definition of success at 20 than it is now?
Oh man, you had to ask this question and that
Yes.
age. Oh,
Why
okay.
not? I don't know
All right.
when you started being a stunt guy, so
I started being a stunt guy when I was 5. That was my
okay.
family business, but I won't go
Okay,
back that
okay.
far. I won't go back that far. I'll answer your
That's a
question at
sidebar
20.
conversation for the next
Yes.
episode.
Yeah, and I was still a stuntman at 20, so this is going to be fun. All right, in the spirit of transparency, I'm going to paint a picture that I haven't on any podcast yet. Okay. Okay, so one of the coolest experiences I had as a stunt person, and I'll get into why this was my definition of success. I went to something called the Taurus Awards. Have you ever heard of them?
I have not.
No, because that's for stunt people, and there's a lot of notable people there.
You don't
But
get Oscars, you get this.
yeah, exactly. But a lot of celebrities there. Anyway, when I was 20 years old, okay. So I get invited to the Taurus Awards, which was like the pinnacle of my career. I was so thrilled. And, there's pictures of me walking down the red carpet. I've got Shaun White on one side and, I've got David Spade on the other side. And I'm walking down this red carpet into the facility, and I've been pre-gaming since 9 a.m. by the way, and it's 5 p.m. right, and so I am just completely out of my brain drunk on this thing, and I go in and I'm sitting in the audience and there's celebrities all around, and after the award ceremony there's a party in Universal Studios, and I'm sitting here talking to Gerard Butler and Jessica Alba and a lot of other stunt people as well. And I remember thinking to myself at that time, like, I can put myself back in that in that environment, and I can smell the fog machines. I can feel the bass of the music that was going and the light show. I mean, it was just burned into my brain. Like, this is it. This is success. I am surrounded by beautiful people who are highly notable, and there's God knows there's money around me for days, right? I mean, just with all the people I'm surrounded by, I'm on top of the world. I could live today for the rest of my life. Needless to say, that is not sustainable, dude.
Oh yeah.
And that was not who I was. So I'm sure that's a first parter question, but that was my definition of success at 20 years old. Hanging out with celebrities, jumping off buildings, walking down red carpets.
Then you became a CEO at 27.
Mm-hmm.
So becoming CEO at 27, what were you not ready for that nobody warned you about?
Leading people twice my age. It was I at 27. At that point, I had been in the industry. I got into the industry around 21, so not long after I decided that one version of success was probably not the version of success I wanted. Uh, but I was like 6 years into the trade game at that point, and started to bring on employees. Obviously, they knew more than I did. I only had 6 years experience, but I had no idea what I was doing from a leadership perspective. I thought I could just point in a direction and people would go. Didn't matter if they were younger, didn't matter if they were my age, didn't matter if they were older. I thought that's how it worked. I'm the boss. You do what I say. Is that not simple? No, it's not simple. In case anyone out there in the same position is listening, they're like, yeah, no, it's probably not that simple, especially when they're twice your age, right? I had to learn to gain respect, and I had no idea how to do that. So nobody warned me about that, and I made a lot of mistakes in getting to a place where I could garner that respect, and I could actually build a team who wanted to execute on my vision.
What's funny is you commented on one of my posts the other day and like, oh, were you the kid leading people at 12 or 13? Yes, I was. I led a new construction rough-in crew when I was 12. And my biggest challenge was, how do I get someone 30 or 40 to listen to me when I tell them how to run a trunk line and ductwork to a room? And I've told this example before. So forgive me, trade crew, for repeating myself, but Josh hasn't heard this story, so I'm going to tell it. I remember I set him up to run one side of the trunk line, and I was going to set myself up, and I ran the other side, and we would come back together and we'd talk about it at lunch. So I go and I do my thing, and he does his thing, and it's lunchtime, and I go look at it, and I'm like, bud, you're going to have to rip every bit of that out. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, it's not right. You're going to have to pull it out. I said, you didn't do what I told you to do. He said, well, who are you to tell me what to do? And I'm like, I just stopped fighting. I was like, you go do your thing. I said, when Dad gets here, he's going to tell you the same thing I told you. But I guess maybe you'll listen to him. And I just went back to what I was doing. And sure enough, my dad showed up like an hour later. And he was like, you're going to have to rip everybody this out. The guy's like, well, that's what your son said. And he goes, well, why the hell didn't you listen to him? He's been doing this a lot longer than you. And I'm like, thanks, Dad. That really helped. But I could, that's not, and I mean, that's low level of leadership. Like, I couldn't imagine trying to have had that same conversation if I was 25, 26, 27 leading a company. So
interesting. Can I give your audience a tip just in case they're wondering?
Yeah.
So here was the magic bullet. Okay. If you want to call it that, but I didn't start garnering that respect until I switched my commands to questions. So I have a phrase that I like to say, and it's people accept what they conclude and resist what they're told. Didn't really matter my age. This is a general leadership piece of advice, but there are two types of questions that you can use in any leadership scenario to gain respect and then get people to do what you want. Number one is asking curious questions, having a full understanding of what it is that they're doing, what it is that they're working on, why it is they're doing what they're doing, what they're building, whatever. You have to get curious, right? This also is a form of humility. It shows that you aren't pretending to know what it is that they do. So get curious, ask as many curious questions as you possibly can. Help me understand, what that looks like, or what have you already tried, or, what is it that you're working on, or what are you struggling with? Okay. Curious. Then the thought-provoking, open-ended questions. This is where you get people to do what you want and execute on your vision, but they have to conclude it themselves. So if you ask thought-provoking questions after the curious ones, like, okay, so you've tried X, Y, and Z. What haven't you tried? Okay, you've got 3 of those. Which one do you think is going to work the best? Oh, that one? Why don't you go and try that one? Well, maybe I will. Okay, great. So that's just a small example, and we could go down the list and unravel all of that. But from a leadership perspective, that's what moved the needle for me, is understanding the role of commands, curious questions, and then thought-provoking questions.
Well, and I think changing your perspective on how you talk to people also, I'm sure, changed your perspective on what you thought of as good performance from those individual people.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that and that was the biggest thing, right? That's where you have to look yourself in the mirror and say, do I really know as much as I think I know?
Yeah.
Or do I have something to learn here?
Everyone, if you've been waiting for Hillmore to jump into the premium digital manifold game, that wait is over. Introducing the brand new HDM1 digital manifold from Hillmore Tools, built for today's HVACR technician and fully compatible with A2L refrigerants. The HDM1 comes loaded with 88 refrigerant profiles covering everything from traditional A1 refrigerants to A2L, A3, and more. And thanks to its onboard processor, you're getting real-time calculations for superheat, subcooling, saturation temperatures, line temperatures, and system pressures, all right on a large, easy-to-read LCD screen. But what I appreciate most about Hillmore is that they never forget who they're building their tools for. You've got oversized rubberized knobs for dirty or wet conditions, rugged construction built for the realities of the field, and included K-style temperature clamps so you're ready to go right out of the box. Bottom line, more information, more accuracy, and more confidence on every service call. Ask your local distributor about the new HDM1 digital manifold from Hillmore Tools, available through Diversitech. Hillmore, tools designed for the way techs really work. Because confidence doesn't come from guessing, it comes from having the right information and the right tools to get the job done. Trade Crew, I'd like to introduce you to my friends over at LiveSwitch. If you haven't heard of them, they're developing a platform specifically for trades contractors and service professionals like yourselves. So picture this. Mrs. Jones calls the office, her furnace is making some kind of strange sound. Normally, you would just have to roll the truck and go see what's going on. But instead, with LiveSwitch, you can jump on a video call right then and there with no app with Mrs. Jones. You can see things from her perspective on a fully functional video call. You can take screenshots, you can record, and you can deliver a different experience that no other contractor is giving their homeowners right now. If you're worried about it working with stuff you're already using, you know what? It integrates perfectly into Jobber, Service Titan, House Call Pro, any of the stuff that you guys are already using. It makes it a seamless transition to add this new tool to your arsenal. Go to hvacrnd.com, visit the vendor hub, set up your LiveSwitch demo today. You can also click the link down in the description below, or you can find the link to the demo in my bio. Thanks everybody for listening to the show. Check out LiveSwitch. I promise you it is an app for you. It gives you an ability to do something completely different for homeowners that no one else is doing right now. You guys won't be disappointed. Go schedule your demo today. Well, and that's that switch from, I guess, not necessarily leader, but it's that switch from boss to server.
Yes.
Is what Sam Miles, who was he's a CPA in Las Vegas, was on episode 181 a couple of weeks ago. But that was one of the things he brought up is he was like, I was a terrible leader. He's like, I built myself this business, thought I was going to be, make all the money I wanted. And he was like, I was an awful leader. He's like, it took me making mistake after mistake after mistake and then figuring out how to go from being their boss to being a servant leader. And that was what made the change in how I could run a business. And I think that kind of takes away. I was going to ask, what's a leadership mistake you made early on that still sticks with you? But we kind of just went through that. What would you say was the hardest season in your career that actually shaped you into the leader and the man you are today?
There were two of them. One was more recent. Not ready to talk about that one yet. But there was another one that was also very difficult. It translated to every area of my life, although it was a personal struggle. So my wife and her sister are Irish twins, 11 months apart, best friends their entire life. January 1st, 2015, we got a call that her sister was in the hospital. She had the flu, right? She was coughing, throwing up, whatever. She worked at the hospital. So she went in just to get some fluids and, make sure that they could keep an eye on her. Well, 4 hours later, her organs were failing. They didn't know what was going on. And turns out that she had become septic. Nobody knew. And she passed away. And I was, I think, 29 years old at the time. So that was 2 years after I actually stepped into the role of CEO. And I remember thinking to myself, as my wife was just completely in shock, devastated, my father-in-law, grown man, just broken and devastated, and my mother-in-law obviously just beside herself. And I remember thinking at that moment, like, anything that you want in life, you got to go get. You got to go get right now. Because it's not even a matter of, we have an expiration date and we're all going to die one day. It's a matter of we don't know when. And, somebody very important in my life once told me the most important thing that you can do, the most impactful thing that you can do is leave behind a story worth telling. And so I would challenge everybody out there listening today to ask themselves, if you were to die tomorrow unexpectedly, are you satisfied with the story you're leaving behind? If you can answer that question honestly, that's a really good compass for what you should focus on, as it was for me, because I knew at that moment who I needed to become to achieve the things that I needed to achieve, not only for my family, my friends, but my business and myself.
Would you say, which in having lost a sibling, it sucks. Um, would you say that was one of the moments that made you say, I need to start sharing some of this stuff publicly because I want to see more people understand the value of working with your hands and building something for yourself?
Yes, that was the catalyst for what has become my mission statement that I recite to myself every single night, which is live fully, love deeply, deeply, and lead with purpose while creating freedom for myself and others.
Yeah, let that one sit for a minute. I'm not going to ask this other question. I'm going to skip it. We'll save that for later. We'll save that for show number 2.
All right.
So if 20-year-old Josh met 40-year-old Josh, what would shock him the most?
That I had a beard.
Actually, 20-year-old me might say the same thing to 40-year-old me too.
Yeah. No, honestly, I think what would shock him the most, after what 40-year-old Josh said to 20-year-old Josh, which probably would shock the hell out of him. But initially, I think just the presence that 40-year-old Josh has over 20-year-old Josh, because 20-year-old Josh thought 40 was a death sentence. And it's not. I'm just getting started.
No, we got a whole other life to live now.
That's it.
Screwed up a lot before, and we got a whole new life to live. And now that perfect segue. Good job, fellow podcast guy. So perfect segue into getting into what prompted this whole episode. So 40 lessons in 40 years. Now, everybody, you can go find the post. Actually, I'll tell you what day and timestamp it was if I can. So it was April 23rd. So go to at Josh Zolin on Instagram and go back to April 23rd, and you can find this entire post. But it's 40 lessons that Josh has learned and put on paper from 40 years in this crazy world. And I think it wasn't content. Actually, I think it was a reflection.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that was. And beside the fact that I'm also staring down the gun barrel at 40, what pushed you to sit down and actually put those 40 lessons on paper and into words?
You ever hear of the book Gap in the Gain?
No, I haven't.
So Gap in the Gain was written by Dr. Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan. And great book. It's one of those books I say that could have been a paragraph, probably, because the concept is really the takeaway, but it's still a good book nonetheless. So if anybody wants to check it out, it's a good one. The gap is when you're comparing yourself today to who you want to be. The gain is when you're comparing yourself today to who you used to be. And it's in the reflection, you said it, right? It's in the reflection that we are able to, number one, see that perspective and then work toward who we need to be, right? And who we want to become. And so I have found extreme value in putting on paper the more difficult questions that I need to ask myself, and then, how I can answer those and what value I can get from it. And I guess I wanted a challenge, man. I wanted to challenge myself to understand if I was just drifting through life or if I actually learned some shit along the way. Because sometimes, I'll be honest, and I think maybe others can resonate with this. Sometimes it feels like we know a lot, but maybe we don't know how to apply it, or we're, or like hey, am I wise? Like, I don't need to be like a sage, right? Like Gandalf, but am I a little bit wise? Like, can I bestow the things that I know and the things that I've learned upon others and them get value from that? Or am I just full of shit? Like, am I just coasting and drifting and hoping for the best every day? That was the reason why I put this stuff on paper. And you're absolutely right. It was a reflection. It was not content. It was, this is what I want to know. And I had to shave that thing back, man. I had like 100 of those things, but I didn't want to overwhelm because that's a lot.
Well, but also 100 lessons at 40 doesn't sound as good as 40
No,
lessons.
that's true too. That
I mean,
exactly.
come on.
40 by 40 is way
Look,
better.
there was a little bit of content creator in there. Like, how can I really make this hit home? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
what have I discerned from my 100 questions that I can make it a great 40?
That's right.
Um, so picking a few of them out to dig into, and this is perfect for talking about gap in the gain. One thing you said is the only obstacle that actually exists is yourself.
Yeah.
So when did that thought process first come into your growth state in life? Was it at 21 when you decided to get into the trades, or is this something that you realized at like 35, like, if I would just have gotten out of my way so much sooner, things would have been even here?
That one was 13 years old. That one was my first girlfriend. And it was me going over for hours and hours in my head what I was going to say when I called her. Eventually realizing, well, let's tell the rest of the story, I guess. Hours and hours contemplating what I was going to say, how she was going to react. If she were to react this way, what was I going to say then? Right? Just going down and down the rabbit hole. So I was prepared. By the time I called, she wasn't home.
Well, I was going to say the other part of the rabbit hole was like, what am I going to tell her dad to get her to the phone?
That's so funny. Yeah, that's
that doesn't happen anymore, but that's
no,
how it used
doesn't.
to be.
That is, you had to go through the gatekeeper, right? I almost wish that still happened. But it was in that moment that I kind of, once I finally called and I spent hours thinking, and then I couldn't actually even have the conversation, I was like, oh, I probably just did that to myself. Yeah. And I think that's one of those lessons that we forget every few years, and we have to remind ourselves. So, that was the first time I remember it, but I'm sure that along the way there has been other avenues where I had to be like, hey, by the way, this is you. This is
Yep.
not an external circumstance. This is not something to blame. This is all you. Just make the decision. Just pick up the phone. Just do the thing. Just have the conversation.
Well, and picking up the phone, doing the thing, also I felt like it played really well into another one you had, which was reality is rarely as scary as your thoughts.
Yeah.
Like you said, you can get in your own way, but you also can get heavily in your own head about things.
We suffer more in imagination than we do in reality. I think it was Seneca that said that. And it holds true today as much as it did 1,000 years ago or whatever. This one actually is, I've been doing a lot of work on this one lately. So I practice Vipassana meditation. I do a 1-hour meditation every Sunday. And so basically it's a silent sit in a room full of 10 or 12 other people or whatever. But the objective is to focus on the sensations that you feel around you, your breath coming in your nose, the breeze on your arm, any sensations or feelings that you have in your body, because that keeps you in reality. Of course, you're going to have intrusive thoughts, right? Like in 1 hour, I can tell you that I have probably 1,000 thoughts that creep into my brain. Everything from why did I step on that poor bug this morning? He had a hell of a life in front of him, to, why did I not pick up the phone when I was 13 and call my girlfriend, to, man, I really got to let this person on my team go. It's been way too long. Like all of the thoughts. all of the thoughts. And it's a reminder because every time you have these thoughts, you're supposed to come back to the sensations, come back to the breath, come back to understanding that reality is right here, right now. And right here, right now, you're okay, dude.
Man, dude, well, I feel like we're like on the same wavelength. Just wait for this. The other thing you said is that your thoughts create your reality. So I said, so how do you keep that in check as a leader?
Yeah. That's a good question. Yeah. So I think, because my thoughts create my reality,
Right?
that it really comes down to understanding which thoughts to give energy to,
Yes.
right? The thoughts that come in and out, the intrusive thoughts are the ones that are just completely insane. The one that tells me that when I'm on vacation, my wife is going to run off with the towel boy, right? Intrusive thought would never happen. I'd be lying if I pretended this stuff didn't go in and out of our head,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's the same thing in business leadership where you say, okay, well, I'm going to bring on this high performer. What if they embezzle from me and take $1 million from my business? Probably not going to happen, right? But it's a reframe at that point. And this is why I do the meditation, because then you can recognize that as an intrusive thought, stop it from spiraling, which is what it usually does, right? And then reframe that to the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
Nope, that's not where we're at. This is a high performer. They did really well on the interview, and I'm going to extend them an offer. Future Josh, I'm going to trust him to make any decision necessary down the road that warrants a different decision.
I like it.
Good, because I made that up.
Hey, you thought it, you made it reality. Right? Another one you said is freedom lives on the other side of discomfort. And I love that because it is so true. I am living through some of that right now with things that are on my mind to explore and figure out and do. What's a moment where you had to truly lean into that for the first time?
For the first time, that's a hard one to answer.
And
But I
maybe not
think
first time, but where's a moment where's the defining moment of having to lean into that? Better question.
yeah. So I'm going to take you back. When I was in California and I was doing stunts, I remember a very specific day. Okay, this day is the day that changed the course of my life forever. I was living in a 1-bedroom studio apartment in Reseda, California. Right, it just happened to be raining that day, which doesn't happen a lot in Southern California, but just set the tone, man. And this was a shitty apartment. Okay, I had a cat. It smelled in in that apartment, so like cat shit, and because it's one room, and I had the litter box right there. Uh, I remember the wind blowing and like the chicken wire over the window just banging on the glass. And I looked in the mirror, man, and I was like, this ain't what I want to do. I don't want to sit and be a crash dummy for somebody more important than me. I want to be that person that's important. I have so much more to give than just being a rag doll. Right. And I got really pissed at myself in that moment because I had no idea what I was going to do aside from, like, I had no idea. The decision there was, I don't want to be a stuntman. Oh shit. I don't want to be a stuntman. What proceeded from that was complete uncertainty, doubt, fear, discomfort, because I had no idea what was next. All I knew was what I didn't want. And once I leaned into that, once I made the decision to get into the trades, once I made the decision to learn in the field, become a technician, work my way up the ranks, that set the tone for my freedom.
This episode of the HVAC R&D podcast is brought to you by Diversitech, the one-stop source for contractors who want to simplify every job. Whether you're stocking up on install supplies, service parts, thermostats, controls, or digging into the legendary tool line from Hillmore, Diversitech has you covered. They're not just a parts supplier. They help build solutions for HVAC pros, offering pads, condensate management gear, electrical parts, replacement components, premium tools that make installs, service calls, and maintenance faster, cleaner, and more professional. Partnering with Diversitech means fewer trips back to the supply house, more time on the job, and less chance of callbacks because you're using the right gear from the start. If you want to work smarter, stay stocked up, and show up for every job ready, Diversitech is a trade pro's best friend. Trade crew, let me ask you something. How many leads are you paying for right now that never actually turn into book jobs? That's where Chirp comes in. Chirp is built specifically for home service companies to help automate your follow-up through text, email, voicemail drops, and now AI-powered conversations. So your leads aren't sitting there going cold while you're out running calls. Because the reality is, speed to lead matters. If somebody fills out an online form and doesn't hear back quickly, they're already calling the next contractor. Chirp helps bridge the gap by instantly starting the conversation and keeping follow-up moving automatically. And what I really like is that it still feels human and not robotic. It integrates with platforms like HouseCall Pro, Service Titan, Field Pulse, Jobber, and more, helping you stay in front of customers without creating more office chaos. If you want to convert more leads that you're already paying for, head over to Chirp, automate the follow-up, and close more deals. Make sure to go to the hvacrnd.com resource hub and book your demo today and find out more about what is truly the most badass AI lead conversion system in the trades. Part of that and things that come from that is also being nervous about it. So you said being nervous means you're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
How can we be better at training ourselves to recognize that nervousness isn't necessarily wrong, and and you've got to be able to figure out that it's not a bad kind of fear, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you have to change your relationship with it. Because nervousness, people avoid it. People avoid it like the plague. Like that, they use that as the signal to stay away. Right? That's literally what nervousness is your nervous system telling you, stop it. Go the other direction. There's danger here. But if we know that freedom lives on the other side of fear, uncertainty, and discomfort, and we internalize that and we actually create that relationship with it and we believe it and we trust ourselves, then when we get nervous, we see that as a compass towards freedom. If you can tackle what makes you nervous, you'll be that much closer to what makes you free. But you have to, your question is really nuanced. You have to really develop that symbiosis, for lack of a better term, with that feeling. So what's worked for me is actually writing it down. What's making me nervous? Why is it making me nervous? What would happen if I did it anyway? In the moment, you'll avoid it. But in reflection, when you can reflect back and you can understand why you didn't do it, that usually shows you that if you did, maybe something good could have come from it.
Well, the hardest things are usually the right things. So, what's another hard decision you were glad you made?
Yeah. I'll take this one back to business. A hard decision. I had to let somebody go on my team that was wildly talented. Wildly talented. They were a technician, one of the best I'd ever seen. And it was, I mean, they were a producer, dude. They were pushing like 400,000, 450,000 through their truck alone. And I used that to justify keeping them on board for far too long. Because, man, I'm going to tell you right now, they were an asshole. And my entire team knew that. I knew that. And everybody knew exactly why they were there, right? Because they would rake it in. They'd make the money. But it got to the point where I couldn't grow my team if I didn't have that conversation, if I didn't let that person go. And ultimately, if I didn't sacrifice or thought I was sacrificing that $450,000 that they were producing. Turns out, right, that those situations are not always as scary as they seem, because what happened? Not only was everybody on the team happier, they were also happier to absorb the work.
That's what I was going to say is it's one of those situations where the negativity that was being brooded from that person was actually lessening the production value of all the ones around it. So it's that classic situation of you've got to cut the cancer out so that the rest can heal.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that it was probably a short term, oh God, what are we going to do? That because the rest of the people's moods lifted, it kind of fixed itself relatively quickly, even maybe not with bringing in someone new yet.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we were back at regular revenue within 45 days.
Yeah. This one I loved because I feel it. I have felt it. I've felt it from people that I truly thought were friends to find out that they weren't. But some people only love the small version of you. How do you navigate growth without losing relationships? And some relationships you need to lose. I'll say that right now. And when you realize it's time to lose them, you need to lose them quick, because the longer you hold it around, the worse it's going to be. But how have you learned to navigate some of your growth around some of those types of relationships?
Yeah. You said it best, understanding that you're going to lose some of them. And the ones that you lose are going to be ones that you shouldn't have dragged with you anyway. That's been the most powerful realization for me. Also in the same realm is that you can't control what other people, I think this might have actually been another one, but you can't control what other people think about you. You can influence it, but you can't control it. And this is along the same lines, right? And so if you're trying to better yourself, you're trying to grow, whether that's professionally or whether that's personally, or anything in between, spiritually, ultimately, you've got to be okay with however anybody views that. And that could be brothers, sisters, parents, kids, friends, and then you'll have to ask yourself, what's more important? Keeping this relationship and staying small, or achieving my potential and saying goodbye? I hate to say it's as simple as that, man, but the older you get, the more you realize it.
Well, and when it breaks down, it really is.
Yeah.
And I was an only child growing up. I did have siblings, like I said, but they were much older than me, so I didn't really grow up with them. And there are a lot of times I just felt I needed to have as many friends as possible. Yeah. Because you can feel, you can literally feel on an island as an only child. But there's elements to that I wish I would have understood as a, you know, I guess what'd you say, an adolescent, and
Yeah.
as a young man in college and different times. There are a lot of times I wish that I would have really understood that the way I do now. And I think that the sooner you can understand something like that in life, the quicker you can actually propel yourself to some of the levels of ability you actually have. That leads me to another one of these that I also freaking love, is that, which I will say I love about every one of them. But really, puppy dog, he didn't like this one apparently. And it's because you don't like when I'm direct, sir. But candor is kindness.
Mm-hmm.
I feel there are a lot of, that's one of the reasons why I got successful at different times with certain contractors, was because having grown up as a contractor's kid, I knew better than to try to bullshit them. And if it was a problem or we saw a problem coming or anything, I would just go tell them and say, like, look, this is what's going on. What can I do so that we can help fix this together? Because we're both going to feel some pain, but I'm not going to lie to you that there's no pain coming. So why do you feel so many leaders avoid being direct?
Because they want to be liked.
Yep.
That's really what it boils down to, is they want to be liked. They're afraid that if they're here's what it is. All right, I'll cut right to it. They're afraid that if they're not liked, they won't be respected. When in reality, if they're not respected, they won't be liked. And this comes from like the people pleasing side of us. I liken it to, there's a scale. Okay, there's a compassion and candor scale. One end of the scale is compassion, one end is candor, and all of us naturally gravitate towards one side or the other. Right? We're naturally compassionate with people, and we don't want to hurt their feelings, and we can beat around the bush, and we can live in the gray, and they can leave the meeting saying, I don't think he was that mad at me. I think I'm okay. I probably don't need to change much. And then there's the candor side of the scale, where you have zero emotional intelligence, no empathy. You just say things how they come to you, and what they what they need to do in order to be better, and you don't balance that at all. The best leaders in the world know how to use both. The best leaders in the world know how to say what they need to say directly and to a person, while also saying, I'm telling you this because I care about you. I'm telling you this because I want to see you succeed. I'm telling you this because you're capable of more. And that's where that truly becomes a superpower. And that's why I say candor is kindness, right? Because if you're upfront, honest, and direct with somebody, and you're doing it because you truly believe in them, like that's only beneficial for them. Now, you can't control how they receive it. Again, you can't control how people feel, right? And all of that, but that is your duty as a leader to earn respect, not likeness.
I think the other thing, wanting to be liked, it also goes into the unspoken expectations are premeditated resentment. How big of a problem is it, or really how big of a problem is that in the trades business specifically, not being able to really give people, this is what I expect of you. This is where we have to be.
Yeah. It's so important, not only in trades businesses, all businesses, and even your personal life. Unspoken expectations are premeditated resentment. What this means is that we have internal expectations of everybody around us, of our employees, of our parents, of our spouses, right? We expect certain things to be done, even if we don't communicate it, and then we justify it by saying, well, that's common sense, or they should know, and I'm sorry, that's BS. Okay, because if you don't articulate clearly what it is that you expect. You cannot hold anybody accountable to that. We see it in business all the time, right? We'll hire somebody, they'll go through the interview process, we'll bring them on board, and then we'll say, oh, they're going to be a great tech or they're going to be a great addition to the team. And we just let them go. And we say, okay, cool. We're, you know, this and that. And then, okay, they come in 5 minutes late and no one told them. Now, yes, this is one of those things, right? You should be on time. But did anyone actually articulate that expectation? Or or do they think that on time means anywhere give or take 5 or 10 minutes from when my start time is? But inside, that's pissing you off, right? They're supposed to be there at 8 o'clock. They're there at 8:05, and you're like, man, I told the customer it was going to be 8 o'clock. It's not 8 o'clock, but you never actually said, listen, that I need you to be walking through the door, shaking the hand of the client by 7:59. Do you understand? That just doesn't get said, right? Because we're left to our assumptions, and we think that people are all live to the same standard that we do. Nobody does.
No, that's the old saying, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late.
Yeah.
That was, if you don't talk to people about that, just because that's your mindset doesn't mean that, goes to the other person by osmosis. You got to have that conversation. And some people, they're going to be there early, and some people, they're going to be wheeling it in at, 59 seconds after they were supposed to be there. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And that's a whole, difficult conversations suck, but avoiding them makes it worse.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And let's use a different one, right? Let's use a different example, because the on time thing, people are probably thinking, oh yeah, well that makes sense. Like everybody should be on time.
Traffic happens.
Traffic
I
happens.
get that
Yeah.
part.
Right. But what about reviewing a work order? Okay. And you've got your admin team or your dispatcher or your biller, and they're reviewing this work order, and there's some spelling errors in there, from the technician, but it's not really a big deal. The grammar's not, it's not great, but it's not bad. You, as a business owner, expect perfection. You want to present a beautiful invoice that is easy to understand, and the customer can look at with one glance and say, I get what happened, and I get why I'm paying this $600 bill.
Yeah.
And so you have an expectation that this work order is going to be reviewed, and the grammar is going to be corrected, and the spelling is going to be fixed. And this person that's reviewing it says it's good enough. Okay. But you never communicated that. There you go. There is your premeditated resentment. You're going to resent the work that person does, but you never set that expectation. Now it turns into a hard conversation. And what happens if you don't have that hard conversation? Eventually that person quits or gets fired. That's the end result. We'll skip right to that. Right. But before that, there's a lot of turmoil. People talk, goes around the office. This person's not doing their job, blah, 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 blah. Every time you avoid that difficult conversation, there's always a reminder that pops up at some point to let you know that you should have.
I've got like 7 more of these, but I'm going to pare it down to 3. I'm going to try.
Right.
I'm going to try, because I know we're getting a little past an hour, and I know some people have other things to do than listen to us ramble, but you should listen. This is good stuff. It's good stuff. Money isn't the objective, but it funds it. There's a huge misconception about, money in general. Money is a tool. People have a hard time understanding that at times. Affluence is not it can be the result of good luck or good genes that you got born into for some people, but I think a lot of people in the trades have to find a different understanding about what the relationship with money should really be. And that's not even the trades, that's people in general. But how should tradespeople think about money differently than they do primarily that you run into?
Man, you take my lessons and you ask deep questions. I like it. Oh, that's good. I think that just understanding that it's not the objective, but it funds the objective. It speaks to it's important, but it's not what you're going to covet on your deathbed. You're not going to say, I'm so ready to die because I've made $5 million. I don't know that anyone has ever said that. I like to challenge people to continue asking why. Why do you want to make a lot of money? Help me understand that. Well, because money's great. Oh, cool. Well, what would you do with that money? Well, I'd buy a boat. Oh, cool, man. Cool. Why a boat? Why not a plane or car or bicycle? Well, because I love being on the water. Oh, what do you love about being on the water? I just, it's quiet out there and I can hear myself think. Okay. So really you're buying silence.
Mm-hmm.
Really you're buying a place where you can reflect and you can be at ease and you can maybe not worry so much about the day to day. Yeah, that's really what I want. Okay. All right. Well, now let's reframe that. How can you get that without $1 million? Because if that's the objective, figure that out. I mean, listen, go buy the boat. Sure. Obviously, that's great. It's probably going to be a great boat. Maybe it's, neon blue and it's got a lightning bolt on the side. And, that sounds friggin' awesome. But in the meantime, you could probably still have what you really want.
Trade crew, let's be real for a second. Most callbacks aren't because the system doesn't heat or cool. They're because something small got overlooked. And condensate issues, that's one of the biggest ones. That's why I like the Assurity system from Diversitech. It's a full approach. Pans, switches, pumps, all designed to work together and create redundancy so you're not relying on just one line of defense. Because when water gets loose in a house, that gets expensive. Fast. Now here's the kicker. When you install it the right way, you can back it with the Assurity Promise. That's up to $2,500 in water damage protection. That's a big deal for your customers and for you and your business. Just go online to assurityhvacr.com. It's easy to register, tied to your install, and now you've got another way to stand behind your work. That's how you separate yourself. Ask your local distributor about Assurity from Diversitech today. What's up, trade crew? You've heard the buzz, you've seen the press gang at every single AHR. Contractors across the country are ditching their torches for RLS press fittings and they're not looking back. Why? Because RLS lets you finish faster, safer, and cleaner. From rooftops to mechanical rooms, crawl spaces and attics, it's a press and go solution that's leak tested, UL recognized, and proudly made in America. Make the switch to RLS and take the heat out of your installs, literally. RLS, rapid locking system, press forward and press on. Most people on their deathbed aren't wishing they had more money, they're wishing they had more time.
Yeah.
And a lot of people we don't think about that because we're not there. But what's one thing that lets you buy back a lot of time? Having the money to be able to buy it back.
That's right.
Silence is powerful as hell. When should leaders not speak? But also, when should we not speak?
Well, you did it in this episode. Actually, you modeled this perfectly, right? And it was after I was talking about Katie, my wife's sister, right? And you said, I think that was it, around there somewhere. Or yeah, it was after I told you what my mantra was. You said, let's just let that breathe for a minute. And so silence really helps people internalize something important that's said, or something, that's done that may or may not need to be reflected on, or whatnot, but there's impact somewhere there. So as a leader, I think the biggest areas you can use silence, going back to the questioning that we were talking about, people like to fill space. Leaders like to fill space. I'll use this in the professional sense. So we're having conversations, and you know this as a podcaster, right? And you did a beautiful job saying, "Hey, let's let that breathe." But most people need to fill that silence, right? They in professional settings, stuff like that. You're having conversations with your employees, and that silence is uncomfortable. You ask a question, and somebody doesn't answer right away, and you say, "Okay, well, what I mean is this, this, and this." Maybe they don't answer again. You're like, "Well, so do you feel this way, or did you do it that way, or whatever?" Instead of just letting it land. And I challenge myself to do this all the time. So asking that question, do you understand what you did to disrespect your teammate? And then being so comfortable when people don't give you an answer to not speak. Man, that is powerful. You ever been in the room with one of those people?
Yes, I have.
It's terrifying, but it's powerful, right? And I think we can take that into our personal lives too. The other side of that was that it can go both ways. I was in a situation where a family member didn't speak to me for almost a year, and it wasn't for anything notable. It wasn't for anything other than he was battling his own demons, right? And he needed an adversary to take it out on. And that silence changed our relationship forever because it's damaging. It can be damaging,
Can
right?
be very
So
damaging.
that's why I say that silence is powerful. So you can use it to your advantage, right? When you're talking to somebody, or you can completely destroy an entire relationship with it.
Did it again. He did not again. Learning how to fix things is a lost art.
Yes. Thank you.
What does that mean in today's replace versus repair culture?
Yeah. I meant it more in everyday life.
That too.
Like here's where this first tipped for me is I had a neighbor that was older than me when I was younger, and one of the neighbor kids was riding their bike, and the chain came off. Chain came off the bike, and this neighbor of mine, who was older than me at the time, they were like 35, had no idea how to put the chain back on the bike. No idea. And I think I even wrote this in my book. I've seen it used as examples, when talking about the trades and other things too. But this is like an actual real thing that happened, in my life with my neighbor. And I just remember thinking, if there's people out there that can't even put a chain back on a bike, like what's going to happen when something else goes wrong? Like, you know what I mean? And not only that, but what happens when AI takes your job? What skill do you have? I mean, time was back in the day, everybody knew how to fix something. Everybody had at least a little bit of mechanical aptitude. There was a
Replace
screwdriver,
a tire. I
a
mean,
hammer, change a tire. I mean, something. And so that's kind of where that statement came from. In your example, as far as the replace versus repair, I'm not sure how it is in your business. My margins are a lot higher on repair than they are on replacements. And so, I kind of liken it to that, is that I can get installers, but I'll need more installers to install a piece of equipment. And this is different. I'm in the commercial space. I know residential is different in this aspect. I'm talking about my business, just for anybody out there listening, like, oh, that's bullshit. But in my business, my margins in repair are way higher. Right. So
It's the same in residential too. Service,
okay.
like add-on replacement is second best. Service and true repair business is still your leading margin usually.
So there you go. And so, that speaks to the power of being able to repair. If we just replaced everything, I wouldn't make near the amount of money that I make today.
I feel we've unpacked a lot of the 40 for 40. I think we need to do show number 2 in like 2 months and unpack the rest of it.
Can I give you one more? Can I give you one of my favorites?
Yeah,
real quick.
Go for it.
I appreciate it. It's one that speaks to me lately, and I think it might have been the first one. If you understand the game, you can't lose.
Yeah.
This has been a revelation.
That was number one.
Yeah. This has been a revelation for me. There's a reason it was number one. And I just want to explain for people, because some people might look at that and be like, what does he mean? And so what I mean is this: the only thing about you that thinks anything is a game is your ego.
Oh, that's deep.
The only thing about you that thinks anything in life is a game is your ego. If you understand that, the game has no power over you. Zero power over you. So if you understand the game that you're playing, if you understand that ego drives almost everything that you do, you've already won. You cannot lose, because the game doesn't exist.
Are you thinking of the day before?
That drives me. Like practicing that. And I don't want anyone to be under the impression that I've mastered all of these lessons. I certainly have not. I just know that they're there. I just
know that they're there, and you're hoping to put them down and take note of them so that you don't forget that you've learned them, or at least started to understand them.
Keep them top of mind.
Yes.
I'm human too, man, but that one's got some real real meat on the bone for me.
Well, and with leaving or putting meat on the bone, not leaving meat on the bone, but putting meat on the bone, I'll ask you a couple of final questions as we kind of wind this down, because, I spoke about it before we started this. I truly want people to get something from not just this show, but I want people to get something from HVAC R&D in general.
Of course.
You yourself, you have impacted a lot of people. What kind of legacy do you truly want to build, to leave behind?
I want to leave behind a story worth telling. I want to, I just want to be known as a good man who poured into everybody he could, but also didn't overstep his bounds. I want to leave a legacy that my kids can take and use in their everyday life long after I'm gone. I think impact is the right word. That's one of my 4 pillars: freedom, presence, impact, and love. And I try to put every decision I make through those 4 pillars.
Do you believe concepts from those 4 pillars, or based on those 4 pillars, what do you believe the trades industry still needs to get right when it comes to leadership?
Okay, well, I might get backlash for this one. Vulnerability, openness, honesty, almost to the point where just leaders in this space need to put their guard down a little bit. They've had their guard up for a very, very long time. And relatability, connection, human interaction, culture, having and bringing the next generation into these industries, transfer of knowledge, all of these start with putting your guard down and just being yourself, not being afraid of the failures that you've had or how you're going to be seen or what you might not know. So lean into vulnerability a little bit.
Well, and you said it, you want to leave part of your legacy you want to leave is pouring into other people. And if you can't break down your own walls and be vulnerable, to me, in my own opinion, it's impossible to pour into someone else if you can't open up and pour out what you've been through.
It's a good analogy.
It makes it impossible. You can't give knowledge to someone else if you don't break down your own barriers and allow that knowledge to seep out of you.
Right.
You just can't do it.
Yes, absolutely.
For someone listening right now that feels just stuck, either feel like it's a dead end job, feel like they don't know what's the next move, what do you think is the first thing that they need to change up here to get past that?
I'll get real practical on this one first because this is what helped me. Healthy body, healthy mind. I think that if they can focus on making sure they're moving often enough, getting outside, either exercising, lifting weights, doing something, just being active, not sitting all the time. I think eating relatively healthy. Like, listen, I'm not telling you to be a health nut or anything. Just be mindful about what you're putting in your body. Right? Are you drinking every night? Are you getting fast food every day? You're never going to be able to fix your mind if you're clogging it up with that stuff. You're just not. Are you getting enough sleep? Like I killed myself for a long time with that. Like I was the poster child for sleeping 3 to 4 hours a night because I thought that, activity was better than sleeping. But no, the sleep is so important. So from a fundamental standpoint, get those things right, right? Eating right, sleeping right, moving, and start to develop that momentum that it takes to see that you're capable of having control over yourself, right? And what you do every day. That'll seep into your mind. And then you'll start to remove those self-limiting beliefs. I'm not smart enough. I'm not strong enough. I don't know enough. Because ultimately, that's what keeps people stuck, right? I'm too scared. What if this? What if that? They don't trust themselves, man. And, so everything that you can do to show yourself that you're trustworthy, not to others, but to you, that will be a catalyst for getting you out of whatever rut that you're in. Because you'll be able to trust that you're going to make the right decisions, you're going to make the right moves, you're going to hire the right people, you're going to have the right conversations, and ultimately you're going to be moving. There's going to be movement. There's going to be a next thing. Whether or not that thing is right or wrong, that's for future you to decide. But you got to trust that version of you.
That plays perfectly into the next question I was going to ask. How do people become more intentional about building their life and not just their business? Because I've done it too. Workaholic by birth, workaholic by nature.
Yeah.
It's
Me
not
too.
an easy thing to overcome. And you don't necessarily have to put down, dang it, I will bring it one more of these. Motivation comes and goes, discipline stays. You're always going to be motivated to work harder because that's part of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to find a way to discipline it, to also care about the people in your life. Because if you don't have them, you don't have support to go do the business part.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say too, man, that and I posted about this on LinkedIn probably a month or two ago, but the reward of even building business isn't what you get, it's who you become. This is what I've found. We think it's the other way around. We work our asses off because of what we're going to get. At the end of the day, it's who we become that really changes our life and allows us to be the support system for those around us and to pour into others and to be a rock for the family and to do all the things that we know we're capable of doing. It's who we become. And it really just speaks to, the face of challenge.
Closing question. What's one lesson you didn't include that still deserves to be said? I know you got like 60. You got to pick one.
Yeah. Let me pull up. I've got the list locked and loaded here. Let me just pull it up and see which ones I left off. I'll pick from one. And I won't cheat and use the bonus one that I put in the
I was
in
going
the
to call
copy
you out
of
too
that.
because I've got that pulled up. So
I bet you do.
yeah,
I bet you do. All right, let's see. The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Oh, so good. Oh, that's such a good final answer. Such a good final answer.
Yeah. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. You can do what you think is right. You can force that on others, and at the end of the day, that will be your demise. Right? We are individuals. Live and let live. Nobody did anything other than thinking it was virtuous of them. Even the most famous murderers in the world did what they did because they thought they were being virtuous.
Yeah.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Trade Crew, I hope you enjoyed today. I hope you got something out of it. If you didn't, then I don't know what show you were listening to, but this was deep. This was a lot of fun. Josh, thank you so much for the vulnerability, the open and honest conversation. I look forward to when we get to do this again, but thank you again. Any last words you want to leave us with before we check out and say have a good weekend?
I just want to say thank you. I loved this conversation. I love conversations like this. I want to point out I am not wise. Okay, these lessons are just they're things that I learned along the way, but not things that I'm good at yet. But they do serve as a compass for me, and they do come up, and I use them to remind myself of the man I want to be, whether or not I'm that man yet. So take whatever I said with a grain of salt, right? And infiltrate and integrate it into your own life if and only if it resonated with you in some way, shape, or form. But otherwise, at the end of the day, I'm only human. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. All I know is a fun conversation. If you want to learn more about me, joshzolin.com. I'll make it super simple. You can find the podcast there. You can find my other businesses there as well. But anything you need is right then and there. But mostly, thank you, man, for the incredible questions, great conversation, and I know people will find value from this.
Well, I appreciate it, buddy. I hope you and the family have a fantastic weekend. I can't wait to, like I said, this is going to be fun to even edit just to get to listen back to it all. So everybody have a great weekend. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you soon. Peace. And that's another one in the books, Trade Crew. If this episode brought you value, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. Share this episode with your friends, your coworkers, your install team, your sales reps, and anyone else in the trades that needs to hear it. And if you've got a voice, a story, or a lesson that the trades need to hear, this show is built for you. Head over to hvacrnd.com, use the show questionnaire link, or hit the links at any of our social bios, and make sure to get me your information so I can get you booked in for an episode of the show. Because if you're from the trades and you've got something worth saying, HVAC R&D is your platform. Until next time, keep evolving, keep serving, and keep the conversation going. Collaboration over competition always wins, so ramble on, trade crew.